ESL 1 Cologne is the ninth CSGO major and it takes place starting tomorrow. And Group D is widely acknowledged as not only the group of death, but probably the biggest group of death we've ever had in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and the craziest, most stacked group we've ever had in the history of the majors in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Now, as usual, there'll be a description box link below to an article with storylines for this particular group. This video will be breaking down the matchups, looking at the map pools, trying to determine who'll pick what map, and then ultimately predicting a winner for each of the matchups. So obviously, what's crazy about this group is we have 4 teams who all could make the playoffs from other groups. In fact, we have 3 teams who could potentially win the finals or make the finals of this very tournament. And yet, obviously, only 2 of them will even make legend status, will make top 8, and have a chance to win the tournament. So we have number 1 seed, SK Gaming, formerly known as Luminosity. They won the last major. They're the reigning champions of MLG Columbus. Number 2 seed, Fanatic. They finished 5th to 8th at the last major, MLG Columbus, getting thrashed by Astralis there. Obviously, they didn't have Olafmeister for a while. He's back again. 3rd seed is FaZe, who were pretty poor at the last major. They've made a roster change since then. Makalele went out and came Kiyoshima of Envious, and they looked good in qualifying, hence why they got the number 3 seed. Number 4 seed, G2, by no other possible criteria would ever be a number 4 seed for a tournament like this, but is on the basis that number 4 seed was determined by the not-so-good teams in the qualifier for this tournament. And they finished qualified on the last map of the qualifier, beating G2, so they finished number 4 seed here, despite the fact they just won a massive tournament before this tournament began. So, the group of death. Let's go, boys. First and foremost, we'll preview each of the 4 teams. So here's what's interesting about SK, formerly known as Luminosity, is that when you've had a lineup together for a decent amount of time, as they now have, for about 6 or 7 months, you don't want to just look at all 7 months of all the matches they've played and make the map pool that way, because you'll get some ones where they'll be imbalanced because it'll look like they're still good on a map that they might have lost the last 5 instances on, for example. But what's interesting about this particular team is that there have been changes in their map pool over time, but the strongest maps have still remained the strongest. So what's happened is the reason they've been able to stay on top instead of falling off after they had the success is because they made the right tweaks and improved on certain maps. And that's what's very interesting about this team. So this team previously were gods on Train, Overpass, Mirage. Now, they were pretty good on Inferno, and they were okay on Cash and Cobblestone, and they were bad on Dust 2, and Dust 2 was their permaban. So as a result, they had the 3 godlike maps, 1 that was like on the brink, and then 2 that were just, they could manage against certain teams, and so they had a solid map pool. They had the permaban, they had a solid map pool overall, but they had to face the right opponents too, because the key opponents on the other maps obviously would have a chance, because if you played Cash, Cobble, you were strong on these maps, and you were an Inferno decent team, you had a chance to beat them. Now think of the teams who were good on Inferno, Cash, and Cobble. Well, one that springs straight to mind, Envious. What's another one that springs straight to mind? Fanatic. What's another one that springs straight to mind? Well, Cash and Cobble. Okay, those ones, maybe VP can at least play them. So you look at the teams that challenged this team, and yeah, these are some of the teams, right? Not Envious as much. They obviously didn't have to play them in that era. So what's interesting is you come to forget the first few months and you consider when this team became champions, which is Columbus. Now, for Columbus onwards, the reason why they've been able to maintain that status is because Mirage, Train, Overpass still godlike maps for them. Now, here's where it gets interesting now, is that Cobblestone has gotten way better for them. It used to be their 2nd worst map. It's now their 4th best map, and they've only lost 1 time out of the last 8 on it, and that was to G2, who've obviously been on a sick heater. Dust 2 used to be their permaban. They started playing it and banning Cash instead, which was a map that was in the middle for them. As a result, they barely ever play Cash. They've lost Cash quite a bunch on the few times they have tried. Dust 2, pretty decent actually. And even the losses on Dust 2, yeah, they're losing to like Astralis, G2. These are good Dust 2 teams, so this is a fine map now. So they've actually managed to find a better permaban and improve that other map, got Cobblestone way better, and as a result, they're actually stronger now as a team than when they won Columbus. That's what's crazy about this team right now. It doesn't look like it because they just lost ECS, so people are going to focus on that and be like, that's not as good as I thought it would be. This team right now is actually, in many senses, in map pool strength, stronger than they ever have been in history. So the only maps that reasonably they're bad at is Cash, that they permaban, and we don't really know about Nuke. Like, they've played Nuke once. They played the bad TL, though, the one that lost before they got Simple and JDM in E-League. So we have the bigger Nukes at Wildcard, but at least they've played it. So even teams will be scared there. So this game's got a crazy map pool where Cash is really the only map that's bad. I mean, their only win out of the last 4 instances of cash that they played was against Tyloo in overtime. Oh, no, against Team Liquid in overtime. That's right, obviously, and it was at Columbus. So cash, not a map they want to be on. Now, it's worth pointing out, the reason why that's so clever, that they've been able to do this with their map pool, is because they faced problems despite being the number 1 team and adapted correctly. So think about what happened after Columbus. Well, they lost at Malmo, right? They lost to Tyloo in a best of 3. So what were the maps Tyloo beat them on? Inferno, Cash. So they got Cash the fuck out there, made it a permaban, switched to Dust 2, started playing that. Turned out they were good on Dust 2. What's the reason they abandoned Dust 2 in the first place? Because when they first made the lineup, they got 16-0'd by Fanatic on it in their first ever game at DreamHack Winter with 2 days practice. And therefore, they were like, can't play Dust 2. Turned out they can play Dust 2. That was a bad decision to just permaban it forever. So Inferno got taken out the map pool by Valve anyway. And so actually, the maps that they did get upset on in a best of 3 are already out of the map pool. So sure, they lost to G2 or on a sick heater, but this team's fantastic. And they've got a sick map pool. Same God tier maps, but now they've got Cobble. So think of it that way, 4 God tier maps. And by the way, when you are God tier on 4 maps, you're going to be the best team in the world. That goes without saying, right? No one else is at this level right now on that many maps. Fnatic, 2nd seed. What's interesting is the old Fnatic, same lineup, but before Olaf's injury, were gods on Dust 2, gods on Inferno, gods on Cash. These 3 maps they were unbelievably fucking good on. Now what's interesting is, Valve fucked them because they took Inferno out. Now the reason why that's sick is because at one point in time, this team had won like 17 out of 20 maps on Inferno. So that gets taken out of the tournament, and as a result, they're not going to have those easier wins over the Navis, let me think, the Astralises, the Luminosities, the VPs of the world, who they used to be able to get onto Inferno and definitely get 1 map win there. So that's gone. Cobble and Cash, still strong maps for them. They're strongest overall. Dust 2 still good, but they haven't quite shown that level that they had before in it, perhaps because they're still bringing Olafmeister back. Overpass, Mirage, still middling maps for them. They only looked good on Overpass before the Olaf injury, I think partly because they just played teams like Astralis and Luminosity in scenarios where Fnatic had the better mental fortitude. Not that they're better on that map than the Astralis and Luminosity guys. I don't think you can make that case. And then Train is still the weakest map. Cobblestone improved a bit. That was actually very good, but like they didn't have to play it as much as they played Inferno, Dust 2 before. Cobblestone good, very good for them. Nuke, we haven't seen them play, so we don't know. So right now, Fnatic actually doesn't have a very strong map pool. They have 2 really strong maps, Cobble and Cash. Then they have Dust 2s in the middle, and then God only knows for Mirage and Overpass. And then Nuke and Train, they're not even playing. So actually, Fnatic comes in with a lot of question marks for themselves and opponents. Now, FaZe, ever since they got Kiyoshima, they are perfect offline on Mirage. They're really good. They've beaten Fnatic there. But, to be fair, 3 of those 4 wins are against Dignitas. So, sure, that used to be a good map for Dignitas, but Dignitas has looked rather weak in the last few months. Train, classically a good map for FaZe, still a good map for them. They only lost in the last 3 instances to Virtus Pro at Malmo. Virtus Pro, classic Train team, one of the best in the world. Cobblestone's pretty good still. Their 2 losses are to Fnatic, who obviously are very good on Cobblestone, so we can let them off there. Cash is not good, even though, admittedly, they're losing to Envious and Fnatic there, who are very good Cash teams. Overpass, they've only played it once. Haven't played Dust 2 with Kiyoshima. Haven't played Nuke with Kiyoshima. So here's the thing. FaZe have a deceptively bad... Let me think, how would you word that? Deceptively bad. Yeah, I think it would be deceptively bad, Matt Paul, because it looks not that good. It looks like they're only super good on Mirage. They're good on Train. They're okay on Cobble and Cash. Actually, you look at it, they're super good on Mirage. They're definitely good on Train, Cobble, and Cash. So they've got a really good and 3 good maps. So that's a pretty solid map pool. Their problem is the other 3 are non-existent. So they have to get the fuck away from those 3. But that's what's going to be interesting when we come to the matchups. The last team is G2. Now G2, I'm only counting from when they started their heater at ESL Pro League 3 onwards. Now that team, the one that Existence had gone from, but we're ignoring the Malmo for now, Cash is God mode. The only team they've lost Cash to was NiP at E-League, and NiP are one of the best Cash teams in the world. So Cash, God mode for G2. Dust 2, very good. The only teams they've lost Dust 2 to is LG, who've improved a lot on that map. Still not amazing on it, obviously. And Mouse Sports, where it's one of Mouse Sports' absolute best maps. Train, they're pretty good on Train when you consider that they always get double digits. They've only lost to Luminosity, NiP, and Gambit. First of all, Train is one of the best maps of all 3 of those teams. Admittedly, Gambit isn't an elite team, but still a good Train team. Nip obviously is one of their best maps, and Luminosity, it is arguably their best map. So very good on Train too. Amazingly, they've become super sick at Overpass. They've only played it 3 times offline in this period, and they've won twice against Luminosity, who are gods on the map. So that's suddenly become really strong. Cobblestone's pretty solid, but it's just in the middle. Nuke they've played twice, but again, that's not a large enough sample size, and they permaban Mirage. So what's crazy about G2 is that they legitimately have 4 maps that they're good to very good on now. I'd say they're very good on Cash and Dust too. They're good on Train, and they're certainly good on Overpass, but still a small sample size for Overpass. So they've got 4 maps, 2 very good, 2 good. So you can see why they're going to be very dangerous, even as a 4th seed, right? So let's look at the matchups now. First and foremost, we have a rematch of the EPL 3 finals and the ECS Season 1 finals. SK Gaming, formerly Luminosity, versus G2. So I'm assuming SK, as the higher seed, picks to be Team A. I think that SK bans Cash, strongest map of G2. It's already the permaban of SK, obvious ban. I think G2 bans Mirage, it's their permaban, and it's incredibly strong for the guys from Luminosity. That's one of the reasons this is a sick matchup, because they both permaban each other's best maps anyway, and they're going to head towards the middle, right? So then we have, I think SK bans Dust 2, still not a map they really want to play, very strong for G2, and G2 will pick it as they've shown us in the series over the last few tournaments. I think at this point G2 will ban Cobble, because even though, yes, they've had some decent results soon, their improved form on Overpass means I think they want to float that, and they want to keep it in there against Luminosity and see what happens. At this point, I actually think, since G2 have at least shown a couple of wins on Nuke, that the SK guys should just ban Nuke, so that we end up with Overpass, Train as the randomed maps. Because listen, Overpass and Train are the 2 good maps for G2, below their godlike maps, and they are 2 godlike maps for the guys from Luminosity. So for Luminosity, yeah, you're going towards what G2 want, but it's what you want as well. And so as a result, yes, G2 has been amazing. They've beaten SK on Overpass twice. Yes, G2 is good on Train, but I have to favour the SK guys. I still think they'll get them on Overpass here. I think they'll have improved and figured it out, and I think on Train they will get G2. So I think, regardless of the random map, I think SK is going to win this match. The second match is Fnatic versus FaZe. Now, in this world, you have to consider that I think Fnatic as the higher seed should, in light of their map pool being a bit dodgy and the deceptively decent map pool of FaZe being there, they should pick to be Team A. So I think Fnatic is going to ban Train, mainly the worst map for them overall. I think the guys from FaZe are going to ban Dust 2 because it's a good map for Fnatic, and it's not that good a map for the FaZe guys. It's their permaban. I think that Fnatic will ban Mirage because it's been the best map for the guys on FaZe, and actually FaZe beat them on it at E-League. And then I think that FaZe will ban Cash because it's been very strong for Fnatic. Even though FaZe is like okay on it, and they've only been losing the better teams, that's what I think. I still think they'll ban Cash here, which is interesting because do they want to ban out the strength? Because the other one they could obviously go with is Overpass, because the FaZe guys don't really want to play Overpass. So that's the question. They could go with Overpass instead. But if I were them, I don't know what to do with that. You have just lost on it, though. That's the thing that sort of will worry them. Personally, I'd go with the Overpass, but I think they will ban Cash. That's my take. So I think with the final ban, Fnatic just bans Nuke. So we get a random Cobble or Overpass. And I think on Cobble, let me think. Cobble is one where Fnatic has twice beaten this team, FaZe. I think that actually Fnatic will win that one. That's a pretty good map for them. It's their best map overall in this returned Olaf era. I think if it comes to Overpass, yeah, Fnatic aren't exactly loving that map, but you saw them picking it against G2. They want to play that map in theory, and so as a result, I have to think to myself that, yeah, they'll be willing to play it. So I think that on Overpass, again, I'm going to favour Fnatic. So I think Fnatic wins this matchup because it's not... The Cobble one, FaZe has a chance on, but this isn't an ideal scenario for them. That's why if I'm FaZe, I personally would gamble and let Cash go here and hope that your individual skill can help you win it, because I think you've got a better chance there. So I have Fnatic going to the final. So upper bracket final, SK versus Fnatic. Now, SK should pick to be Team A again, exploit the map pool. So I think SK bans Cash, their permaban, very good map for Fnatic. I think Fnatic bans Train, their permaban, good map for SK. I think SK bans Dust 2, because it's a decent to good map for Fnatic guys. It's not the best map for their SK guys, so get that out of the equation, and you know you've got good maps from here on out. Now, here's where Fnatic have a choice. They can ban Mirage, which is a godlike map for SK, or they can ban Overpass, which is also a very godlike map for Luminosity. But here's where it's interesting, is what do you do if you're Fnatic here? Because remember, if you're Fnatic, Mirage and Overpass are both in the middle of your map pool. You don't really want to play these maps. but you've played Overpass less, but you actually picked Overpass against G2. So maybe you've shown that you're willing to play Overpass. So in this scenario, do you ban Overpass or do you ban Mirage? If I'm them, I still think I ban Mirage personally. I still think that's too dangerous against them. They just don't lose that map. I'd still gamble on Overpass if I'm them. So if I'm Fnatic, I ban Mirage here. I think SK just obliges with the nuke ban. So I think we random onto Overpass or Cobble. Now, in this world, I actually take SK to win either of these maps. I think SK probably has the best chance on Overpass, but I think on Cobble they'll still win by a small margin. I think Fnatic has a chance on Cobble, certainly, but Cobble has gotten a lot better for the guys from SK. Like I said, 7 out of their last 8 on LAN they've won. I think that's one of the maps that they really have improved since the MLG Columbus days, where they had to kind of eke it out, and that was kind of like the 4th map that just won them a few games. I think this is the world where they're going to be good because of that. So I think SK wins the group, comes out in first, no surprises there. So in the lower bracket, the bottom, the elimination game, we have G2 versus FaZe. Now, FaZe is the higher seed, so they get to pick to be Team A if they want, and I think they should do it. Now, I think FaZe bans Dust 2. It's their permaban. It's a very good map for G2. I think G2 bans Mirage because it's the best map of FaZe. Meanwhile, it's the permaban of G2, so these two make sense to start off with. Here's where there's a moment for FaZe to pause, though. Do they ban Cash or Overpass? Same choice as when they were against Fnatic, right? Because they're decent on Cash, but they've lost a couple of times. And on Overpass, they don't want to play it to the FaZe guys. Meanwhile, Overpass, suddenly we've had this resurgence from G2. So in this scenario, will they ban Cash again? Personally, if I'm them, I would ban Overpass here. So I think they'll be smart and they'll ban Overpass in this instance because just G2 have been too dangerous on it. But then again, that's thinking if FaZe think, well, we're better on Cash. Then you've got to think to yourself, okay, but the guys from FaZe know that G2 is a godlike map for FaZe, know that G2's a godlike on Cash, so can you really leave it in there? So ultimately, thinking through the psychology of different pro gamers, I try to read interviews and figure out how they think. I think that they will ultimately themselves choose not to float Cash, and instead they will ban it here. And so I think then G2 will ban Train because it's a good map for the guys from FaZe, but it's in the middle, just off the end of the good maps for the guys from G2. So I think instead we're going to get a Train ban there, and I think FaZe at this point will just ban Nuke. Unless they're willing to play Nuke and don't want to play Overpass, that would be a clever ban as well there, but I don't know how much they've practiced Nuke. So I think we get a random Train or Overpass. Actually, that doesn't make sense. We get a random Cobble or Overpass. I'd written that down here correctly. Let me see. Random Cobble or Overpass. Now, in this world, FaZe is certainly decent enough on Cobblestone. Problem is, so is G2. Like, I actually think this, if it comes to Cobblestone, will be a really great match. I think this would be fantastic. Lot of skill as well from both teams. So I think that would be a very 50-50 one. Maybe I would edge it like 60-40 to the guys from G2. If it comes to Overpass, I'm going to have to heavily favour it over to the guys from G2. I think they'll win this one. I don't think FaZe has shown us anything on that map. They've even lost to Dignitas in E-League in that crazy overtime game. So I can't believe in them enough on that map at the moment. So I have to figure, I think G2 is going to win this no matter what. But I think if it's Cobble, that'll be the really interesting one. Which leaves us with the decider best of 3 is going to be Fnatic versus G2. What a game, eh? Semi-finals, obviously, of both EPL Season 3, but that was with no Olafmeister, and the semi-final of ECS Season 1. So we've got a lot of history to go off here. So Fnatic bans Train. I think you have to do that, because Fnatic doesn't play it anyway, doesn't like the map, they're pretty poor on it, and they know G2's at least decent on it, and doesn't lose except to really good teams on that map, which Fnatic are not. G2 does their standard ban of Mirage. They know it's a good map historically for the guys from Fnatic, but more importantly, G2 just does not want to play it right now. They do not play that map on LAN. So now the picks. I think actually that Fnatic this time does not go with an Overpass pick like they did at ECS, because they saw they got spanked. I think this time they go with Cobble pick. Now the reason you do the Cobble pick here is because it is statistically your best map with Olafmeister back in the lineup. Obviously, you know that you can't pick Cash because you do not want to pick Cash into G2. So I think here you've got to pick Cobblestone. It's still a strong map for you guys. It's a decent enough map for the guys from G2, but it's not a godlike map for them. It's just a good map. So I think this is a solid pick for you, and you have a chance to win this, certainly. I think G2, here's what's interesting. I mean, history would tell you, oh, just go straight for the Cash pick here, right? But they know that Fnatic's good on Cash. So I think instead, G2 sticks with what they've been doing at the last few tournaments, which is they're picking Dust 2. So I think G2 picks Dust 2 here, their second best map overall. A very good map for them. So I think G2 picks Dust 2, and they will be favoured to win that map. Then you go over But by the way, Fnatic will have some chances. They've only lost to G2 recently on it. Then the decider is between Overpass, Nuke, and Cash. Now, if it comes out Overpass, even though I don't fully buy the G2 hype that they're gods on it, Fnatic also, even though they were picking it, which probably means in practice they're good on it, they haven't shown us anything offline with it with Voloff, so I have to say I'll pick G2 to win if it's on Overpass. If it comes on Nuke, I mean, at least G2's played it, but even then, who knows, right? That one I think is very 50-50. It's hard to know because it'll just come down on individual skill probably. If it comes Cash as the third map, which for me would be the dream third map, by the way, that will be fire because both teams are very good on it. And obviously that has been a monster map for G2. And I will slightly, very slightly edge G2 there. So what's interesting is, if it comes to a third map, yeah, I actually do kind of think on two of the maps that there's a good chance for G2. But here's the thing, looking at the overall series and considering all three maps are going to be played, and the fact that Fnatic has chance on both of the first two maps, I'm actually going to say that I think ultimately Fnatic wins the best of three. I think across all the maps, they've got so many chances that it's going to be hard for the G2 guys to win unless they just 2-0 them. I think maybe the choke factor comes into play here as well because it's a major. Fnatic has those amazing players who are getting better and better as a unit again with Olaf back in the mix. And I think skill-wise, they can go toe-to-toe with this crazy G2 team. And I also don't bank that every tournament G2 can just come out and Screaming Shocks can bang everyone's head off all over the map on every pistol round and every gun round. I don't buy it. And as a result, I think the T side of G2 will flounder a little bit. It'll still be good, but it won't be as good. Therefore, I'm taking Fnatic to win this series 2-1, and I think Fnatic will go through as the second team of the group. So that's Group D, the group of death, and as usual, description box below for the storylines for Group D.